Good morning. So before we get started, are there any questions? So what did you all do yesterday afternoon? I know what you did yesterday night, actually. What did you do yesterday afternoon? Did you all able to try the visualization? So you get the feel for how to create maps, animation, plotting graphs. Is there anything I can help with? Or I can answer questions, or I can show you again? Anything specifically? Or are you looking for something specific that I have not discussed in terms of outputs, in terms of analysis, or anything that you want to do? Please feel free to ask questions. Actually, this is the best opportunity for us to learn all together. Any questions? No? Everything is crystal clear? Yes? Okay.
Do you have a question?
Not yet. One other thing that I want to show you is we did talk about all these different outputs, right? So when you move the cursor, it tells you this is a monthly output for water balance and so on. Then when you select that, then you are going to have these variables. So some of you may not know what does this variable mean actually. So the names are very short, right? So you may not know what this mean, like what is ET? I mean, people will know ET. What is T loss? T loss means transmission loss. And the other thing you don't know is, you don't know the units of this actually, okay? So we are still working on few things actually where just like when you go here and select, it expands the information. We will have the same information when you go here and select a particular variable. It should say the units. You can see the units there in millimeter, okay? And so any information that you're looking for, when you click that, it should show you the units. Okay? But still you may not know what is, water yield is okay, what is lateral Q? Okay, lateral Q is lateral flow. So if you want that type of information there actually, currently the only way to get that would be from your database, output database. Okay? I told you that you can install this free software called SQLite Studio. Okay? You can download this if you go to Google and just search for SQLite Studio. Okay? This is the SQLite Studio. So if you could download this free software, and once it's installed, okay, once you install the SQLite Studio, you should be able to see something like this actually. So this is the SQLite Studio. So with that, with this software, you should be open all the databases that SWAT Plus produces. Whether it is a project database like demo1.sqlite or SWAT Plus database or output database. So anything with the .sqlite in your project folder, you can open and see the information. You can edit the information. Okay? You can manipulate it and so on. So for example, if I want to open a new database or add a new database, I can say add a database here. And it's an SQLite 3 database. So now I have to browse. So I'm going to the project folder where I created this project. I know it's not in your machine, just you can watch me for a second, and it's also recorded, so you'll be able to see it later. SWAT Plus, Demo 1, okay? So this is your project database. I can open the project database now. Or I can open the model database, SWAT plus SQLite. But now I want you to really show you the output, okay, the results. So if you go to the results, there is this SWAT plus output.SQLite. So this is what when we read the results back, okay, this is what it got read actually. So remember yesterday when we did the SWAT plus editor, and here we said read the results, right? Analyze the output, read that results. So when we read the results, it created this database. Okay? So it's going to be always under your default and results folder. Scenario, default, results folder. So if I want to open this file, I simply select it and click open. Okay? Click open. So here is the output dataset that I just, SWAT plus output database that I just opened it actually. These are all some of the previous one I opened it. So it's all here. Okay. So if I want to look at this, here these are all the output that you're seeing. When you go to the interface, here for example, you're seeing all this, right? That's the same thing what you see here also. Okay. So one other thing that you have here in addition to this information is there is a called table description. Okay. So this table description, when I open this and I ask for data, I double clicked it. Here are the information and I open for the data. So this shows you what is it and what is, there should be a unit though. This just gives the description. There is one more table. Okay, here, no, that's deposition. Or column description. Okay. So in this table, HRUW month, precipitation is in millimeter, snowfall, okay? Surface runoff generation, lateral Q. We are going to expand this here actually so that it will be full name. Instead of precip short name, it will have a full name like precipitation, snowfall, snow melt, surface runoff, lateral flow, water yield. So you can always come and see what are those tables, in what is the name of the variable, and the units and the description. Okay, and this is going to be pretty much constant for most of the stuff. If you want, you can even export this into Excel, or if you want to make it to a text file, you don't want to open this every time to see what are those, you can simply export this into a text file or a CSV or a Excel format. Okay, so there is a way to do that. There are tools here, export right there. So if you say export, you can just simply export. You want as a single table, or you want to query the results and then export only some part of that. You can do all kinds of things here actually. And then next, you can ask for format like CSV format, text format, what format you want. Okay. So I just want to point this out to you. And if you want to look at any of the other files, you can simply double click on that and go to data. That should give you the data, the day, the month, year, and then here is output for all your model output. This is what you are mapping, graphing, creating animation. They are all coming from this output file. Does that make sense? Any questions in general? The other thing, you can also do this, if you don't want any of this database and things like that, you can also go to your project folder, Okay, you can go to your project folder, temp, SWAT, SWAT plus, demo 1, scenarios, default. In your text in-out, we have, let me sort it by date. So you have all the text file of your output also. Okay? So there are many ways you can get your output. Okay? So if you want to look at basin-wide water balance yearly output, okay? That says basin. So the first variable is the spatial object, whether it's a basin-wide, HRU, aquifer, landscape. Okay? So these are all the different spatial objects like landscape. Okay? And the next one is your output, in the sense it is a plant water. Okay? PW means plant and water. AQU means aquifer output. CHA means channel output. Then it gives you either it's a monthly output or daily output or yearly output, time step. Okay? So if it is a RES means reservoir output. SD means again channel output. I mean, this is the channel output. This is the SD stands for sediment. Okay? So if you want to look at the basin-wide output, I can simply right-click and open in a notepad, and you'll be able to see year by year what is the water balance. Okay? Year by year, here is how much precipitation. This is for the entire watershed, not for any one HRU, not for any one landscape unit or any one channel. It is for the average of the entire watershed. So this gives you how much is the precipitation. Of that, how much is snow, if there is any snow. In Ethiopia, there is no snow, so that's why you don't have anything. How much is the runoff? How much is the lateral flow? So this is the total water yield. The total water yield is equal to your stream flow. Okay? And then percolation to groundwater, evapotranspiration, transmission loss, plant evapotranspiration, soil evaporation. So this is, now we are splitting this into two. Previously we give you the total evaporation. Now we are able to provide you both what is plant, what is soil. And then surface runoff, curve number, soil moisture at different depth actually. So nowadays people want to compare SWAT output with satellite soil moisture, right? So here is, you can use this information to compare that actually. This soil moisture is for the entire depth, okay? And this is only the top 300 millimeter. Okay? We can even change this to any depth you want actually. How to change this actually? It's in your soil depth file. You can specify that actually at what depth you want. And snow, potential evapotranspiration, tile. If you have a tile or artificial drainage, it will show you how much water is coming through the tiles. If you apply irrigation, it will show you the amount of irrigation. Okay? And this is basically direct connection from surface to river. If there is a bank, the channel, if there is any reservoir, direct reservoir, landscape, and then again channel and reservoir for landscape. So this gives you the complete water balance for the entire watershed year by year. If you need an average annual, there is also another output for average annual. So that's basically mean of all this information.
By the concept of landscape, what do you exactly mean? I mean,
the floodplain and upland landscape. Remember when we did the watershed delineation, we divided the landscape into two components. So based on the slope method actually, we said how much is the elevation difference, 5%, 10%, that's what we are talking about, the landscape. Landscape is the upland and the flat floodplains. Any questions? So again, if you don't want to use a database to view exactly what those and what the units and things like that, you can also see it in your text inert folder by just looking at your .txt file. All the outputs are simple .txt, and they all import directly into Excel because they all have the same format, fixed format. So you should not have any problem in importing that. So here is another one, HRU, plant water. So what do you have in plant water database? So if you look at, open this database, this is the output by year, because this is a yearly output. So by year, by HRU, okay? So for each year, for each HRU, what is the leaf area index? What is the biomass? What is the crop yield? Okay? How much is the residue? In other words, how much leaves that falls, or how much is when you cut the plant, how much of the rootstocks or the stubbles that goes back into the soil as nitrogen or carbon. Soil temperature, water stress, air stress. Okay, so this is a new one that we added in SWAT Plus. It's called air stress. How many of you are not sure about plant growing? Actually, that the soil has to have air, the porosity, what they call aeration. So if you go and look at the farmers, they till the land or they disturb the land so that they can create air pockets, so that they can have more recharge or more water holding capacity and things like that. So what kind of air stress you may have actually, aeration stress, temperature stress, nitrogen stress, phosphorus stress, okay? How much nitrogen the plant consumed actually, okay? How much of nitrogen percolated to groundwater. So there is all the maximum temperature, minimum temperature, average temperature, all the information that you would know, solar radiation, wind speed, relative humidity, everything is right here actually about plant-water interaction. Okay?
It does not give the temperature of soil, no?
Yeah, it does. Here it is, temperature of the soil. Soil temperature.
At which depths? It's the whole profile?
Yeah,
Average.
this is the whole profile actually, but the model calculates this by each soil horizon. Yeah. So like this, you may want to check out any other information that you may be interested in actually. Either it's a basin-wide, HRU, okay? Whatever the information that you need, they all right here in this file actually. Any questions on the output? Anything else you want me to show on the output? If you want me to repeat anything what I just said, please let me know. No problem actually. Do you have any, do you want me to show something, right, landscape or HRE output? Just want to walk you through one more. Mm-hmm. So let's do the, first let's do the landscape unit. Okay, so here is the landscape on water balance. You can do anything. If you want water balance, or you can do plant, you can do nutrients. Okay, so you can choose any of this output. Let's say landscape unit water balance, and let's say you want average annual, say precipitation, or let's say water yield. Water yield means equal to your stream flow. or evapotranspiration. Okay, let's take just big three component. Precipitation is equal to evapotranspiration plus water yield, roughly. Okay, so you can click to say create my map. Cannot get the data variable unless you somehow. Yeah, so it's showing you only the output for this small section. Let me close this, suppose if this is locking the file. Morning. Okay. Okay, the HRU, we have the data, but for landscape, there is a small problem actually. I'll investigate that a little bit more. So this is the HRU level output. I looked at the HRU water balance. So this is the average rainfall. So rainfall is all the same value because it's just one rain gauge we have in the watershed, right? So if you look at the water yield, you start to see the difference actually. So your water yield is anywhere between 520 millimeter all the way to 2000 millimeter actually. So you can see in some places it's very high, in other places it's low. It's depending on the landscape, depending on your soil, depending on your slopes and so on and so forth. And if you want to look at the ET map, you can also create the ET map. That's the evapotranspiration map. Okay, so evapotranspiration also goes from almost 400 millimeter to 1000 millimeter. Can you able to see that? So you can also animate any of this, both spatial scale and temporal scale. Yesterday we animated only the channel, but you can also animate by HRU, by landscape unit, and so on. Let's say if you want to animate sediment. Let's see if there is a sediment here. No, sediment is not in this file, okay. Or if you want to animate soil moisture, let's try soil moisture just for fun. Okay, I selected soil moisture, and I think it's pulling all the data because it's still looking for all this time period. So once it's done, because it's almost 22 years worth of data for 500 HRUs, okay? And it's a month by month actually, so that's why it's a lot of data it has to extract. I could have reduced this into only 5 years instead of 20 years. Any questions while that's getting processed? I'm curious to see how much memory it's using right now. Yeah, it's using almost half of the memory, about 8 gigabyte, and 50 to 60% of CPU. Okay, that's done. So here is your information. So now it's starting to animate actually. This is the soil moisture by month actually, how it changes within the watershed. Of course, you can change the color scheme. We put this color scheme, but if you don't like it, you can simply double click and go to the color scheme, symbology, and you can change it to something else, more colorful. So now it changes color automatically, and you can be able to see this even more clearly. I'm not the good color picker actually, so any questions? It's very, very simple and straightforward actually. It's a matter of getting your data right, getting your model right actually, then analyzing the output like visualization, creating maps, all this made more simpler now. Are there any questions online? No questions? Okay. So at this point, do y'all any reaction what you saw in the last 2.5 or almost 3 days? You have been seeing the model, you have been seeing the new things. What do you think about it actually? Do you think it's useful? Okay. Well, if there is not any more questions, I may need to let you take over if you want to on the data side actually.
Ah, okay. I was going to ask, did you try yesterday doing some maps and things and it worked well too? No? How come? Não reconheceu na hora de importar? Okay, we can see that. She had problems yesterday with the inputting the files in there.
Okay. But you could have borrowed somebody else's project and you could have continued then. Oh, okay. But what I'm saying is to play with the output, you could have copied somebody else and then tried it.
Just,
Any other questions?
mm-hmm.
For different scenarios,
Mm-hmm.
you can change only the precipitation, or can you change like the land use, for example, or if you change land use, you have to change the HRUs? I don't know.
No. Again, remember yesterday we showed you the decision tables, right? Through decision tables, you can specify which HRU or which land use. You can be as specific as one HRU, or you can be as generic as all land use of type X. Okay? So you could have said, I want to be on this land use and this soil and this slope. Then it becomes very unique, right? So you can be as specific as you want or as broad as you want when you change your landscape.
But like if I have already a map, a land use map, so I don't need to use the decision table. You know, I have an actual very good map from satellite image or whatever. Then if I put this new land use map there,
sure,
it's going to be a new scenario with the same
right.
HRUs, or do I have to
No.
redo all the HRUs?
See, the
now I have a
HRU will differ because HRU is based on land use, right? So unique land use. So if your field boundary did not change, it's only the land use underneath that changes actually. So when you overlay the map, it's going to create new HRUs. So it won't be the same HRU. So that's one of the reasons why we use decision tables, so that you can change just the land use of an existing HRU rather than creating totally a new project. So every time you change either soil, land use, elevation map, you are going to get a new HRU. Yeah.
And with regarding the decision tables, can I want to run the model now without using the decision table? You know what I mean? Like, can I check that? Like,
yeah. Right now the decision table is not turned on actually. In our example, those decision tables are examples for you.
okay.
You can build your own decision table. So when you decide to do that, then you can, if you want to include it in the HRU, there is a place where you can include that actually. If you don't include anything, it's going to run only with the current one. It's not making any decision for you yet actually. But the decision table is one way of changing the land use actually. But you have to come and activate it, or you have to come and link, okay, for this HRU, I want to apply this decision table. If you don't put the decision table, it's not going to use it.
So just for land use, for example, if you have many maps for different years and you want to include here because you want the series and then calibrate it with the changes, like what you can do is to just do a pre-processing of this data, the land use maps, with what you already had delineated on the HRUs and the subbasins. And then you insert that as a decision table. So you can use the same information, but in the decision table mode, so keeping the HRUs and the process of change. So that's the way they include it there, but you have to do a little bit of pre-processing first.
So, like Daniele was saying, actually, you have the HRU map, so you can overlay the HRU map onto your new land use map, and then you can see what has changed actually, how much has changed. Then you can use that percentage or whatever actually, and you can do that with multiple land use map actually, every 5 years, every 10 years, or every year, depending on what changed. But this is for land use change, not for crop rotation. Crop rotation is different. Every year crop changes in agricultural field. That's different. This is permanent change from one land use like forest to grass to agriculture to urban. That's what we are talking about here actually. Okay? The land use change means it's a permanent change from one class to another class. It could be both ways. It could be afforestation or deforestation. Sometimes they may say, okay, what happens if I put back forest? Okay? So when we did a project in Kenya, they converted the entire mountain to tea plantation. It's created significant erosion actually. So now they are thinking about 2,000 meter elevation, they want to put it back to natural forest, broadleaf. Even though tea is still like a small tree, it's not going to be like a 20, 30, 40 feet tree. It's going to be only about 5 to 6 feet tall actually, because people need to stand and able to pluck the leaves. So they wanted to increase that. They want to increase the canopy. So they were thinking about putting that forest back about 2,000 meter elevation, and thereby we can protect, because that's a high rainfall zone where they get a lot of rainforest. And they want to protect that actually, thereby the water will go through the soil and then come through rather than directly run off on the landscape. So that could be a land use change. It was forest, then it became T, now it's going back to forest again. Okay? So you could run scenario in that mode also. So it's not that only it needs to change one direction, it can go back to the forest again. Any questions? I know you're all really waiting to hear what Danielle has to say about data, the data for Brazil. So she has got wealth of knowledge and information about that actually. So she's going to talk about it, show you a lot of websites, and later she'll be able to share you some of the web links that you can use from actually. Mario, do you have a question? Here is a phone, microphone.
So good morning. My question is related to some discussions we have in the previous 2 modules in the school, also related with modeling and related with uncertainty. Because SWAT Plus, SWAT itself, has several models inside to perform perhaps different processes. I mean, the runoff generation and so on. What's your idea, what is your tip for beginners in order to present and communicate their results as not as an static maps, but sometimes with a table or even a map of perhaps showing what is the expected interval of uncertainty of some process, not all of them, but perhaps what are your tips, or what in SWOT Plus, what are the best options to show in an easy way for beginners some uncertainty maps about some specific process? That's my question. So,
yeah, I mean, when I do the uncertainty, I consider uncertainty in 2 different ways actually. One is the physical uncertainty in the model itself actually, the model parameterization uncertainty. Then there is also our input uncertainty actually, okay? Then you can also call it as input variability, like rainfall. Every year the rainfall is different. Your model is going to give you an output, right? So that's going to give you a range. If you look at a long-term mean, your rainfall range all the way maybe from 800 millimeter to 1500 millimeter. How does that response? That's one way of looking at it actually. Another way of looking at that would be, how does the process, okay? How does the individual process, like curve number or the Green and Empty equation, okay? Did my soil map is right actually? What happens if I change my soil map? What kind of uncertainty it's going to produce? Or what happens if I change the soil properties? Okay, how that's going to affect my hydrology, for example. So there are a lot of, like what I call like a shock. You can give changes in the model and then look at the response and be able to map that results and then able to compare, okay, if, for example, I can turn all my soil to a sandy soil, what is the response? Okay, if I change all my soil to clay soil, what is my response here actually? That is a 2 extreme situation. So your reality is going to be somewhere in between. So that's what people want to know. They want to know the uncertainty range so that the decision makers can take a decision based on that actually is still worth taking decision. If the uncertainty is too huge, probably they are not going to take a decision because they don't know where the real truth is actually. If the uncertainty is somewhat narrow, they can say, okay, they will, if they know for sure it's 20% uncertainty, they're willing to take the risk based on that 20% uncertainty. If you say it's a 200% uncertainty, then they won't know the difference what is right versus wrong. So they may say, okay, it's too risky for us to take the decision, or too risky to take any decision about that actually. So it's just like insurance, right? Risk aversion. So we all have risk aversion actually. We will take only calculated risk. We are not going to take any risk. Okay? So to take calculated risk, you have to have the confidence in your output or in your decision-making process about what are you making decision that's going to yield, that's going to lead to some type of positive conclusion. Okay? You don't have to be absolutely right all the time. We're never going to be right actually. And in most of the situations, especially in water quality, we don't even have data in a lot of the places to make decisions. All we are looking for is the directional change. Are we in the right direction in terms of reducing pollution, for example, reducing erosion to reservoirs? Okay? So as long as we are in the direction, even though the model says 10% reduction, in actuality is only 3% reduction, it's still 3% reduction. That's what we are looking for actually. So it's how you communicate to the decision makers. That's one of the very poor job as an engineer we all do, is we don't know how to communicate to the politicians or social scientists on how do you convert our knowledge, information that decision makers can use to make final decisions actually.
Yeah.
So
that's the point. So as I understood, in terms of decision makers, for instance, farmers, they need to know a mapping of how is the sensitivity of some, of the range of some point or even distributed processes. And so this is very important for decision making. But to my knowledge, I didn't find enough very frequency papers or even reports showing two kinds of uncertainties. So one in the outputs, in the stream flows, even in the quality, you have the intervals, and also discussing this kind of uncertainty, that you have several simulations, and you have the interval, discussing with the uncertainty of the sensitivity of this running in the entire catchment.
Sure.
I mean, Green-amped parameters, so the hydraulic conductivity or even the other parameter. So how they are moving through a normal simulation in contrast with the uncertainty of the output. So because for the outputs, perhaps for some people looking at the downstream point, it's very important in terms of building a bridge or even some infrastructure. But for a farmer who is part of the entire catchment in one specific point, for him or for her, it doesn't matter. So yesterday night we discussed with Ali, for instance, in terms of supporting farmers decision making. So a farmer here in the upper part, for him or for her, it doesn't matter what is happening
absolutely.
At downstream point.
Yes.
But they need to know at that point how is the uncertainty in some parameters for the soil physics. So I think this, again, as beginners, not for high specialized people, we need to discuss how communicate this kind of uncertainty in a very rapid and intuitive way. That means, and mapping as distributed models, I think they has the tool to do that. You know?
I think, I think in that regard, I think I also mentioned earlier yesterday that we are doing some, give me 1 second here, let me see if I can pull up. Okay, so this is a website that we are working on right now. It's not complete yet. Actually, it's still work in progress if you want to. This gives you the farmers real-time information about how much rained, how much is the soil moisture until today, and next 3 days, next 7 days. What's going to happen there actually, using SWAT plus. Okay? So this gives you, like for example, right now you're looking at precipitation here actually. So this is looking at precipitation in the future. It's a 3-day precipitation. We have a 7-day one actually. Then we are looking at a 30-day one actually. So those are all will have an uncertainty associated with that predictions. If you want to look at the plant moisture, you can select the plant moisture and look at what the plant moisture for the 3 days and 7 days and 21 days. Oh, it should supposed to show me that. It showed the rainfall. Let me look at that. Okay, here you can select your type of your soil. Okay, you can say what if my land is clay. Okay, depending on where it rains. So now it's showing you for 19, 20. I think maybe they have. Okay, I can zoom into a particular state. Let's say I want to go to Texas. I think right now the rain is happening in Iowa. Let me go to Iowa. It's taking time to. So within Iowa, I should be able to select whatever the county within Iowa also. Let's say I want to go to this Benton County. So it zooms in. That's the Benton County, and you'll be able to see how much is the runoff versus what's happening there actually for the different soil types. So let's say soil moisture. Maybe the output is still not finished yet actually, because they normally update it every day morning actually. So I'm just wondering whether it is still working on. Oh, 4 times daily. Well, so rainfall runoff soil type is clay. So here it gives you no significant runoff is expected for the next 3 days. It's a good time to apply your pesticides or fertilizer or manure. So that's a recommendation basically, based on what's expected in the next 3 days. Okay, so this is I think this may be work still in progress. Oh, there it is. Now it's updating the soil moisture. Okay, so this is the soil moisture map. So you can see the soil moisture legend here. I think there is some refreshing issue. It's not getting refreshed properly. So now it's showing the surface runoff. Let me check on the thing. It's supposed to, I mean, it was working fine before I left actually. That is, it is supposed to show you at the county level. Each pixel here is 4 kilometer by 4 kilometer pixel. Okay, so every 4 kilometer you should be able to see what is happening in the landscape here actually. In terms of, we just provided these 3, but we could have provided other outputs also. Okay, so this is one of those real-time applications for the farmers, so that they can look at the current and the next few days what the future projection is going to be actually, in terms of runoff, in terms of rainfall, in terms of soil moisture, and so on and so forth.
How much time did you spend to this process to be ready for the United States? How many years?
I mean, it's still work in progress actually. It's not completed. I mean, the web and other stuff, maybe a few months actually. The actual work is putting together the data sets and things like that. We did it for the Hawks project. We are using the same data set. Data sets are still the same, except we are now converting from the SWAT to SWAT plus inputs. Okay, so we can take advantage of some of this stuff actually. So once you have built the model, that model could be used in so many directions actually. If you look at what Daniela worked with at a private company is, once the model is calibrated, that model can be put to use like this for real-time forecasting, 3 days, 7 days, I think 30 days. What are the projection here?
Yeah, we have, depending on for agriculture, we have it with radar too. So
Okay.
for smaller periods of time, for next half hour, 3 hours.
Sure.
And then 7 days, 15 days, and up to 6 months.
6 months. Okay. So you can then,
In
if
the future.
the 6 months projection is generally not going to be very accurate, they are going to just say above normal,
Yeah.
below normal, okay, rainfall, okay, or it's going to be very hot, very cold. Okay, so they just give you a qualitative assessment.
Yeah.
You have to take that and use weather generator to simulate your own weather based on that, and that's where the uncertainty will come in actually. Okay, so you can put some uncertainty bound around that actually. What happens is 1 standard deviation or 2 standard deviation, and then run the models of different runs and then give them the high and low values
Yeah.
within that.
It's more to give a trend of
Yeah,
what
trend.
will happen, and so they can prepare better, I guess.
And I mean, since you're talking about helping farmers, one of the other website I can also share with you would be this. They have all kinds of acronym here. Okay. Advanced. Proceed. It says it's some kind of a dangerous website. It's our own website actually. So here you can run anywhere in the whole US. You can be able to select a location. Let's again go to Iowa, for example. You can select your county within Iowa, okay? And you can select your soil within that county. And then you can select whether it's a tiled or not tiled, whether irrigating or not irrigating. Okay, you can put a field area, how big is your area? Let's say this is going to be 100 hectares. Okay. Then you can select a cropping system. What are you growing here actually? Let's say corn, soybean rotation you're doing. So it will automatically show you what is the current load of sediment, how much nitrogen, how much phosphorus coming from your field actually, based on average annual. So we have run the model for millions of combinations for every farm field in the whole US. So this is just sitting in a database. And they can go quickly and select your geographic region and ask for what would be the contribution actually. Okay? So here it shows you how much sediment is coming in current and the future. There is no future. I did not add any future thing. Let's say if you want to put a terrace in this watershed. So what will happen to a terrace? If I put terrace here, and that will show you what the impact of the terrace. I don't know whether I need to click somewhere. No, that's PDF. Yeah, here it is. So now you can see before and after if I apply terrace in the same field. Okay? Or if I put, say, buffers, okay, or filter strips. I put filter strips, and you can see what will be the impact of filter strips in sediment, how much of nitrogen changes, or how much of phosphorus changes here actually. These are all SWAT.
But this is for what time period? What is the time?
This is the time over a 30-year period actually.
So you can also... 30
years.
30 years. So you can assess also the standard deviation.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Of course,
We
the
have all
uncertainty also about that.
We have the ranges, we have standard deviations, we have 50th percentile, 90th percentile. All those statistics are in the database actually.
How is the users' engagement or even participation? How do you are, monitoring the users' usage
Yeah.
about your products.
I think
Do
there
you
are-
have any metrics about that?
No, see, there are two things here actually. The first thing is education.
Education.
Yeah. So we have to first educate the farmers and others what is their action on the field and the consequences of their actions.
Okay.
Okay. So if they don't do anything, this is what you're doing actually, and we can show them at the field, at the catchment, small catchment, or at the river basin scale. Okay. A farmer in Iowa may not think about what's happening in Louisiana.
Okay.
Okay, it's 1,000 miles or 2,000 kilometers away from there actually, right? They are going to look at only their field actually, so they can show them right here. Then I can also show them if you do something different, if all the farmers collectively do something different in Iowa, what could happen in Louisiana, for example? I can show that also. Okay.
Okay.
So it's all at this point is more of education. That one. Second, the government agencies are beginning to use this information to not only as an extension education, but also advising farmers in the future, your payments, like conservation payments,
Payments.
will be depend on a tool like this actually. Because we don't know what's the future. We don't know whether the rainfall this year and next year is going to be the same. For example, 2015, we had about 3 times more rainfall in most part of the country actually. And 2016, we got 2 times less rainfall in most countries. So we don't know how you make the payments knowing the weather pattern actually. But at least you can advise them, these are a good stewardship or it's a good practice, okay? So that we can educate them and then we can tie the payments to this actually. If I do X, Y, Z, you will get this much reduction, okay? That may not be an absolute number actually, but that will be only a percentage change. So the more the percentage, you may get more credits, and thereby you get more payment from the government, for example, to be a good farmer and good environmental sensitive and so on and so forth.
Okay, that's very fine. My last question.
Yes.
For this spot here. This. Suppose I am a farmer and I see the monitor, the screen, the forecast,
Yeah.
and I go to my farm. I am there. I am trying to make some, say, self or own perception about what is happening just now.
Sure.
And I am aware that okay, it's not these figures. I'm seeing here there is the opposite situation. So do you have any feedback system from users that can send, I said, a tweet or an email or even a message to a central point to say, okay, I am having a rain, cats and dogs here, and the map is showing nothing. So are you thinking about to incorporate these feedback mechanisms from the field to the central modeling process?
Eventually, yes, but today we won't do that. The reason is, if it is that bad, farmers won't even come to us back, actually.
Sorry?
The farmers will not come to us at all. They said it's bad, don't even waste your time. Don't even go there, actually. So we will be very careful not to release anything without having confidence.
Okay.
Okay? So that's why the pilot projects.
Okay.
Okay? So we don't want to put out something like this one. I don't put this to the public use actually.
Okay, it's not public. Huh?
It is public, but it is not advertised well actually. It is only to a
okay.
target audience.
Okay.
Okay, so we are asking first government officials, extension professionals
Yeah.
to do the evaluation first. Because they are the front line. They are the one who is going to be interacting with the farmers. Okay? So unless they convinced, it is never going to go to the farmer level.
So my recommendation is that from some previous experience in the center of SEMADEM, that this is a social utility center, you know, this is for people that's, if you are going to have a step beyond, that need to prepare this managerial situation, that's the participation of people is a kind of new, I say, asset, but it's also a new source of information.
Yeah.
It's not very easy because the format is very different.
That's what the education.
But people in the Joint Research Center, for instance, in
Sure.
Europe, they have some experience that when they have the feedback for the people, in the first moment it's a complex, it's difficult to introduce or to update.
Sure.
But at the medium and long term, they have more gains, more profits than losses in this process. So I think this modeling in real time, very widespread, is in this direction. So I am pretty interested to be part of this discussion because I think this is perhaps the future of all our encapsulated knowledge in modeling.
What you're looking at is, this is what's going to be the wave in the next 20 years, actually. It's not for next 2 years. But we learned our lessons from private companies.
Mm-hmm.
So none of the private companies will enter into any product unless they're tested and proven and accepted and then they do the marketing. The marketing is not something we as engineers do very well, actually. So we are not there in marketing yet, actually. So before we do the marketing, before we go nationwide, we need to make sure the people who have, because the farmer is going to say, if it is not good, he's never going to look at it. If the next time we say, I fixed it, now you come and take a look at it, he's never going to come back. The customer never going to come back. But the farmer, first thing he's going to ask is, he's going to ask his first line of contact, which is the extension specialist. He's going to ask him, do you believe this now, actually? Do you think there is a value for this? If he says, no, it's full of no good information, then you're done. Okay, it's no starter. Okay, so that's why we are very careful in what we want to project to that level until we are ready to release to that level, actually. But this will gain momentum automatically, actually. We don't have to do anything. There are lots of non-profit organizations others are interested in, like, for example, organic label. Okay, if you put organic label, you can ask for any price you want, actually. Sometimes 30%, 30%, 40%. So now they're asking big company like Cargill or Walmart. So if you're going to go and buy banana from Ecuador, how do I know that farmer is practicing good practice? So they want to run model like this to show them that the erosion, what they are generating, or the nitrogen they are polluting the river is normal or less than the normal, actually. Okay? So that's a label they want to. So they can definitely ask for more price in a competitive market. So the market will drive a lot of this environmental thing down the road, but we need to be prepared for that. We need to be ready with the tools and technology, like you talked about the data uncertainty. I mean, if you're talking about water quality data in US is poor, the rest of the world is going to be even more problematic because we don't have data in a lot of places, actually. So it's still work in the progress, but we are moving in the right direction in the sense this is going to be the wave of the future, actually. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
I just wanted to say a little bit about this experience also. So I worked in Climáticas-Fase, and we developed there a product for agriculture too. So it's not based on SWAT yet, but it's for the entire Brazil, and it has like a water balance, and it does forecasting for those different scenarios and in the future. And one thing that we learned also was that most of the farmers have stations, weather stations and like precipitation gauge stations in their properties. And as they do not share it, it's not openly shared as we have from our national government, right? So one thing that we inserted as a loop feedback was their data to improve our system and then provide them better results and outcomes. So that was something that turned out to be very good, and we could improve even the forecasting for the weather and things like that in their regional area. So that was something that we did that was incorporated. So from maybe 10,000 stations that we had, we went to more than 20,000 and then something like that in Brazil. So I think it's something to think about now, especially we have a lot of different platforms for them to include data that we can use more frequently to.
Yeah. We what we call crowdsourcing actually. You can do a crowdsourcing. So user can come in if they don't, okay, let's say for example, I put an output and I put it for 28 millimeter rainfall, expected rainfall. They can come and say, no, it is not 28, it is actually only 24 in my water, in my landscape. They can correct that one input. The model could rerun quickly and give them the answer. What happens if it is 24? What happens if it is 18? So that could, then we can also take that back into our model actually as a crowdsourcing data from the user.
Exactly.
That's what Google does actually. So if your car is moving and if you have an application running in the background, and if it's not moving, it's supposed to move at 120 kilometers per hour, you're moving only at 80 kilometers, they know there is a congestion, right? So when you look at your Google map, then it'll immediately show you there is a congestion in this area, thereby your traffic is going to be delayed by X minutes actually. So nobody's sending data to them actually. Google is automatically retrieving from your phone and using that collectively. It's not just taking one phone actually, it's selecting everybody is on the road at that time and then use that to go give you real-time feedback to you on what's happening there actually. So we are talking about crowdsourcing here actually, very similar.
Yeah, so also we did that for some cities, so thinking more of flooding forecasting too. So for different, like the metropolitan region of São Paulo, then we did not only with the stations, but also like crowdsourcing data from like Facebook, Instagram, and Flickr or Twitter and things like that, and other available citizen data that so we could use as a feedback also to the model to include, and also Mario works with that here with.
Should take care because it should be from training people, because if you are not supervising who is feedbacking you, if you are not controlling who is feedbacking you, some people are sending some
Bad data.
fake news. And so that's that sometimes is okay. You have a pilot project in some, and you train some people that you trust them, and perhaps not too many, but you start some pilot project about how the feedback for the field could be updated and incorporate value in your forecast.
I think those things will take care of by machine learning and artificial intelligence will take care of that actually.
That's
so
what we
if there is a
did.
bad data outlier, we just disregard that data because there's so much data will come in. You can able to go through
Filter
that
it,
and filter it and reliable information. Take only the median values. Don't take the extreme values.
So
Okay.
that's the approach, because we were dealing for one project with the metropolitan region of São Paulo, so there is a lot of data. So we did machine learning with this data to select and exclude data, and also we filter it with real-time radar like data for precipitation. So if someone is saying, oh, here is flooded and there was no precipitation the last day, then that's the wrong data. So some simple things like that to make sure we filter the data before putting in the platform again. So and mostly with machine learning algorithms too.
Yeah, we are getting there actually. We are getting better, but it's going to take time, no doubt about that.
Natural
actually.
language.
Yeah, but we are in the right direction. That's how much I can say actually. Yes.
Yeah.
So there is more work to be done, and this is where if you make a road, if you just draw a road, the private industry can take it and make it profitable and make it perfect, so that we don't have to be the one doing that work for them. Actually, somebody else will do that for us.
But anyway, we are discussing about 20 minutes, 30 minutes, but that is very important for the new generation.
Yeah.
We are discussing we have a market for these new people.
Mm-hmm.
And this is an emerging market for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
But they need previously understand how hydrology is working.
Yeah.
Of course, that's the point.
Everything starts with good information, good knowledge, good background, and good people working on these models actually. So if you start throwing bad information, you'll be out of business very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
You won't be in business for too long. There's only so many times you can fool the people actually. So.
Yeah. So.
Good. Looks since we kind of shifted our gear actually, and I think there is a coffee break is coming. Gabriela
Yeah.
is ready for coffee. It's already there. Okay. So I don't know whether you want to take the break now and then start the data thing rather
Yeah,
than
I think that would be
because
better.
you're talking about less than 5 minutes to take a coffee break.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
why not we take a quick coffee break? Is that okay with you? Yes. Okay. Sending them the message. Okay. So we can come back, say 10:15 or 10. So we can come back at 10:15 and
10:15.
start looking at data sets at that point. But please bring more questions actually. Okay.
Yeah.
That's the best way for us all to learn. Okay. Thank you.